Corsair has launched its new flagship keyboard, the K95 RGB Platinum. We took a look at this as kind of a first look at CES, and as a fan of the K70 and K70 RGB that I've been using for quite a while, I'm kind of curious to see whether or not, well, I'm excited about this one. They bring a few new features and bring back some old ones that people kind of complained that they were gone. So let's go ahead and crack her open, play around with it, and let's see exactly what Corsair's bringing to the table. Hey, that's a pun. I didn't even mean to do that. Whatever, go with it. Now I'm gonna start with the wrist rest because this is one of my favorite features. It's removable, of course, that's a big deal. It's got some of its own rubber on the bottom here to make it an anti-slip. And of course, it has got, as I showed at CES, the magnetic reversible wrist pad here. So some people like a more textured pad and some people like a more smooth pad. Well, now you can just choose the one you want, flip it around, stick it in the groove, and it's gonna stay because it's magnetic. The only thing that kind of sucks about this rubberized texture here is it does pick up dust and fingerprints and dirt really quickly. I've been handling it here for only a few seconds and it's already got dirt on it. So you'll probably be cleaning this quite often. The only other thing you get inside the box here is of course some warranty information here for Corsair. Make sure you fill out your warranties because that way if something breaks, how else are they gonna know that you bought it legitimately? So, all right, well, let's get this crap out of here and let's look at the keyboard. Here she is right in here in all of her spectrum waving goodness. Now this is the part that kind of turns a lot of people off, I think, with RGB is they think, oh my God, stop it with all the RGB. But let's talk about this here for a second. People complained when there was a color scheme because what if you didn't want that color? Well, RGB was a thing now because you can customize the color to be whatever you want. Anyway, one of the first things you might notice that's quite a bit different with this Platinum keyboard versus the standard K95 RGB that was before this one is you have one row of macro keys right here instead of three. Now there is also onboard memory on this, so you can save 3 user profiles to this that go with you wherever you go. One of my major complaints I had, especially with the K70 RGB, the color profile I would load didn't actually work until it was plugged into a computer that had Corsair Link on there to allow it to load the profile. It was saved on the machine, not on the keyboard, and that was a huge mistake in my opinion. Now it's saved on the keyboard. 3 customizable profiles that you can put on there yourself. But as you can see, when it's off, it looks quite sleek and stealthy. And when you turn it on, it's like, whoa! Check out all of those colors. I mean, you got 3 brightness controls right there, but you got the usual suspects when it comes to buttons. You've got your profile key, your brightness key, and your Windows lock. And then over here, you've got mute, you've got a volume rocker, as well as a, well, it's actually a volume dial, not really a rocker, but a dial. And then, of course, the multimedia function keys. Does anyone actually use those? Every keyboard I think I've ever owned has had them, but I don't think I've ever used it even once. One thing I think is kind of neat though is even the Corsair logo is RGB, so you can control that. What really stinks is when a company gives you lighting control, but then there's some parts of the keyboard that doesn't actually change color. Like for instance, if you had RGB control here, but the logo always shined red, or the multimedia keys always shined red or shone red, whatever the right term would be. It was shown, I don't know. Words are hard, okay. Then it kind of defeats the purpose of having RGB if you're forced with another color down your throat. Whatever, I digress. We talked about it a little bit at CES, but on the back here you have a channel that's kind of a cross channel here, so you can control which side of the keyboard it comes out of. This is actually designed for corded headphone users, so that you can have the headphone cord come out the middle of the keyboard and not be routed around it, which can get in the way of your mouse. And if you're a competitive gamer, then maybe that would bother you, having the mouse routed around your keyboard. It's never bothered me, but it's a function that's there nonetheless, so you can take advantage of it. But as you can see on the back of the keyboard here, we have a USB pass-through. They've brought that back. Thank you, that's been gone ever since they started RGB. They talked about, I don't know, if it was bandwidth of the cable or something. For whatever reason, they didn't have a pass-through USB anymore. Thank goodness that's back. The only thing I think it could have made it even cooler is if there was a built-in SD slot, but that's because I do content creation, and so I'm always looking for SD cards. I'm looking for places to stick it. You might also notice here you have some edge lighting. That's kind of new, right? This is new to the Platinum series. This right here, what appears to be just a spectrum wave of LEDs, actually has 19 zones that can be controlled and colors that change with almost endless customization. You can control what these do in Corsair Link, and it gives you a full, complete control of the lighting. Like I talked about, I mean, if this was always spectrum wave, and no matter what you change the colors to, that would kind of stink. But it would also kind of stink if this was just a solid color. You can make it a solid color if you want, but is cool because you can change this in 19 different zones. Some other things worth mentioning here that are actually kind of almost not worth mentioning. It's got all the functions you'd expect of a mechanical keyboard, N key rollover, anti-ghosting, all that stuff. In fact, that doesn't even seem like a marketing point anymore because every single mechanical keyboard on the market has it. But it has it, so I might as well at least mention it. Now, one of the neat things about Corsair and its ecosystem with the Corsair link is this can actually sync with any other Corsair RGB products that you have in your computer. Your water coolers, your mice, your keyboards, your Void headsets, whatever. So you can have one piece of software that controls everything. So if you want kind of a unified color scheme, then that's something you can actually do. Anyway, let's do this real quick. Let's go ahead and do a quick typing test. And then I guess that will pretty much wrap things up. Now, I'm not gonna be doing the typing test with the intention of accuracy in there. I'm not the fastest or the most accurate typer, but I kind of want to see how the MX speed switches feel. And I'm also checking for things like noise. I've never typed on the MX speed, so let's go ahead and see how they sound. To test the audio on this, I have a shotgun mic actually mounted right here, right in front of my face, but I'm kind of using the same distance that your head would be to the keyboard to try and gauge the sound. Of course, your volume levels and everything are going to vary, but here is how the switches sound. Now the speed switch has a little bit less travel. I'm used to typing on browns, which have a tactile hump and a little bit more travel, so I'm probably pushing pretty hard on the keyboard. But anyway, I think that it feels pretty nice. Okay, let's talk about undoubtedly the most subjective portion of the review, and that being price. This is the $200 keyboard. And I know right now that sounds super expensive, and it is. Trust me, that's a lot of money on a keyboard. It's the most expensive keyboard I've taken a look at coming through here, with the exception of the Topre Switch keyboard from Cooler Master we took a look at a couple years ago. But you get a lot for this though. You get a aircraft-grade aluminum construction. It doesn't creak, it doesn't twist, it's flat. I've had keyboards where I go to do the review and I put them down and they're like rocking and teetering because they're twisted or somehow. It just feels like quality. It does. So at least you get that. The K70 and K70 RGB keyboards, I've had those since they launched. They're still going. You get the longevity and the life out of them, so you could buy a $200 keyboard and it would probably last you 5 years, no problem. But pricing is one of those things you have to decide for yourself if it's worth it. I can't do that for you. I must say, it seems like Corsair is listening. They changed some things that the audience wanted, and now you can find it on the K95 Platinum. I guess the question is going to be whether or not some of the features we're looking at here are going to trickle down to, say, a K70 Platinum. Who knows? I've got no word on that, so that's just speculation and wishful thinking, realistically. Anyway, guys, time to go. Thanks for watching today's video where I take a look at the K95 Platinum. Tell me in the comment section what you think about this keyboard versus the price point. Let me know if you think it's on point or if you think it's way off and why. Also, too, let me know what keyboard you're using and why. That's also a big gauge in all of this. Hit that like button if you guys liked it. If you disliked it, then you know what to do. And if you got lost on the way to a better channel and you found this one by mistake, why don't you hit that subscribe button? I make videos, and I do things. It's what I do.